Going back to, so having different types of friends, and I understand you would need your parent friends to be able to vent from those things. But I do think it does get to a point that it's very much them and us. And I find that when people find out you don't have kids, they will treat you differently. Or if when you do have kids, like, I think there was a time where I've said, I've got, I was looking after a toddler, and I think people just assumed that I had a child. And then they completely changed. Even the body language changed when they thought I was a mum. And I remember thinking it was like they maybe just thought it was something that they could relate to with me. And I'm like, well, there's lots of other things you can relate to. And again, I have probably got more experience working with children than a lot of people, like new mum and dads.
Yeah, that's so true.
And
just because you're a parent doesn't mean you fucking know everything.
Yeah. I mean, I've worked in schools, and I've got a big family. I come from a big family, and obviously we've got loads of siblings. Well, loads of toddlers in my family now from my siblings, and I have taken care of them, taken them overnight. I've taken them out for walks, and my friends. I've got kids now, so I know enough, and I just find it's a bizarre thing that we do, because we don't do that for anyone else's other part of their identity. We don't do that when we find out about where people work. We don't automatically decide, oh no, you don't work in the same industry as me, I don't have anything to talk about, and walk away from them. So it's not that different, really. It's again another part of your identity in your life. And I mean, I know people are like that with dogs and cats, because I know because I'm a self-confessed cat person. Like I've got a cat as well. I absolutely love her. I love cats. That was a big thing in my old work. Cats and dogs, either side. There's a bit and now that I've got a dog, I feel like I joined like some secret society where like all dog people would talk to me if I had Odin, or like I'd mention it, and it'd be like this
because
whole...
I don't have a dog, no one talks to me.
and it is. I can imagine that's probably what it's like in a way, having a child. It's like some badge that you as soon as they know you're one of them, that's you get treated slightly differently.
People open up and stuff like that, like, this is like another insight on like the mom kind of categories as well, is whenever I became a single mom, no one would talk to me, like literally, because I became a threat, which was so silly. Like, so I stopped being invited to things, like, do you know what I mean, like all these different like factors, like no one invited me to like different like kid stuff, and I just like felt super isolated. And it's just like, why does it have to be like one or the other? Or like, do you know what I mean, like if I don't have a husband, like then and I'm a single mom with kids, I'm just out for everyone else's man, like, stuff like that. So it's just really bizarre.
That's awful
that these people are doing it on, like, in my opinion, not even realizing that they're doing it either. So it's like unintentional, kind of like putting themselves in a category and then like pushing everyone else away, when it's like, you can just miss out on so many good pals and good relationships that could have been beneficial and like helped you grow so much. Like, like in my opinion, like friendships should be from all different types of backgrounds, like, they have different lifestyles, because then if I only go to what I'm used to and what I know, then how do I expect myself to grow as a person? Because I'm never putting new perspectives into my life ever, or like learning new things. Like,
that's exactly what I think as well. It's like a kind of vacuum chamber. I think it's just insane that people do that, and people do that quite a lot. And it's funny you're mentioning about being single, being a single mum, because I'm thinking back. So someone I used to work with, a couple of people I used to work with, she was single, no kids, in her 40s, and she used to always bang on about this, is that like there was a certain point where she would just lose people because she either doesn't have a child, or most importantly, she doesn't have a partner. So she kind of like labeled it as a single tax. And I remember read up about all of this, again, tried to explain it to my husband, who was like, it doesn't exist. But I suppose it does in a way, because, and then sometimes I find myself doing it too, and you kind of think, right, we're having people around, shall we invite so-and-so, like, and because they're in a relationship, you're thinking, and then you forget to invite the single person. And it's not because you're trying to deliberately ignore them, but it's just because you just sometimes think, they're not going to want to come. But I've got enough like single friends now, I think they will want to come. Was like, but
Yeah.
and I realised there was a few years I did do that. I'm like, that's horrible. Like, I'm totally not inviting them because I just assume that they're not going to want to be a couple because I would think that would make them feel bad. But it's not. I'm not going to make them feel bad. If they don't want to come, they'll say no. Like, they don't have to, but they might want to come because if you get to a certain age and you're single, especially if you have no kids, like it must be so isolating because you've got
Yeah.
people who are shacked up, who are inviting, having their couple friends coming round for drinks because that's, you know, we've all done that. Or you've got parents, you know, having play dates and inviting your kids so you can come along and you're socialising. And you might not necessarily have any of that. And I just think it's all of these assumptions that we all have on various things about people who don't have kids. They assume that they are not good with kids or they don't like them, which is not the case on mine. I just don't want one for myself because it would be too overwhelming for me. I don't think I
it's
could
like,
cope.
Yeah, it's just like a character, like not a character thing, but it's just like a personal choice that like doesn't suit how you feel. Like, you know, like yeah.
But interesting point about the single friends.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, from one side, that's really sad. Like, I've never heard it from that perspective. Like, oh, you know, as a single mom not being invited and the threat. But from another side, so a lot of my friends are couple friends because me and Selby have been in a relationship for a wee while now, and that's how we end up doing things. And we've ended up doing it like this because I had friends that were single and then they would refuse to come because they weren't in a couple and they felt like the third wheel or the fifth wheel or whatever.
When it's like,
and I didn't want it to be like that because when me and Selby are in public, we're not interacting with just each other. I want to interact with my friends and the people that I've invited, but they would feel uncomfortable. And then you would feel like, okay, now I have to try and invite a girlfriend that they might like. So then they feel more comfortable and they have someone to be wheeling with, if that makes sense. So it's just interesting. Like,
no, that is really interesting. Like, just because, like, to think that you're only being invited for the actual social situation or the numbers or something like that, when it's like you're actually being invited because I like you and I want your company here, I want your energy here, not because of what makes you your label, whatever, single, not single, like kids, no kids. It's like I just like you as a person. And so it's like just come to be here, whether I'm in a couple, because like even like when I'm with Brody, like I'm not like kissing him all the time or something. Like, who wants to do that? Like, when you have a social gathering and you're a couple, you do it so that you don't have to talk to your partner. Like,
There's some new
to them,
fresh blood in there.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, still come, guys.
please come.
But like, luckily I feel like our balance of like friendship groups and everything has been like a really good balance between like couples and like single friends as well, and it's just really great. Like, but
I agree.
I do. I think it is getting better, but it's something I never thought of. It's only when I had older friends that I kind of realised. Because I think in your 20s, there is an element of it's quite embarrassing to go to like a new place. And normally, like being a third wheel is kind of like, don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But obviously, as you get older, and if you've chosen to be single, then it is limiting your options about who you want to hang out with. Because everyone's got this assumption. Because majority of us, if we were single or if we had single friends, would have felt that they would have thought they were a third wheel at the time and they didn't refuse to come. But I think as you get in your 30s and your 40s and you're still single, then if you are not getting invited to things, like, what are you doing? Because most people are. Like, it's not like when you're in your 20s, most people maybe are single and you would be the odd one out if you're in a relationship. But when you get older, it's probably going to lean the other way and then you're not inviting them or they're not getting invited. And I used to think, like, with this specific person I'm thinking of, and I was like, why is she always so bitter and resentful with stuff? And I can kind of see it in that sense, because then she's not, like, she's, I don't know, getting discriminated against for so many things that based on assumptions rather than anything else. And, you know, I suppose I'm not that close to her for other reasons, but it's just kind of, it did make me reflect on the friends I've had and or that I've maybe not invited them to places, and thinking that maybe I should have just invited them. And I have had friends that are single and I've invited them and they've came out and it's been fine, and I've never really thought about it for a point. It's just when they brought that up and thinking that we make assumptions that are not necessarily correct on people, and it's not very fair, really, I think. And it's a funny thing because there's more people that are choosing to be single now, and you know, statistically, I'm married. You're engaged. Statistically, you know, there's going to be a group of us. If say there were 6 or 7 of us, I mean, a few of us are going to get divorced at some stage.
Yeah.
So there will be a time that you're going to have friends that are going to go back and being single again.
Yeah.
And I'm one of my friends.